Alrighty then, now that we're all caffeinated and we've had a bit of a break and gotten a bit of sunshine, some of us, I want to talk today about partnerships and collaborations. And this is somewhat similar to, I realized as Tammy and Kalanith this morning were talking about partnerships with industry, that we've used many of those same guiding principles in our partnerships with other ALS organizations. So I want to walk through a few examples, and before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the work we do. Which way am I pointing this fellow? There we are. Okay, the skyline of Chicago. Just to remind you that we are Chicago-based. Our goal is to be the leader in comprehensive ALS care in Chicagoland. So a bit of the skyline there. So again, our mission is to provide the most comprehensive care and support to people with ALS. Our goal with this is really to help individuals confidently navigate the disease. So we consider ourselves partners with them on this journey. And we're going to talk a little bit about the family approach that we have to the individuals that we work with. And part of providing that is also to advance scientific research. We won't talk today about our research program, but that is a big piece of what we do as well. So we've done this work since 1977, and what we've tried to do in that period of time is really refine and improve and refresh the services that we provide. And so part of our goal, or one of the ways we're doing that, is to collaborate with other groups so that we can really combine best practices with other groups that are doing work within the ALS space. So just a little bit as to how we create that community. The numbers here I don't think are particularly important, but obviously it takes a community, it takes a village to run any sort of nonprofit program. And we honor every member of our community, and we really do consider them all part of the Les Turner ALS family. So part of our mission, a large part of our mission, is working directly with individuals with ALS. And my colleague Lauren Webb is here, who runs that program for us in the field. Our approach is very individualized. So we make roughly 1,700 visits a year to individuals with ALS, which means that someone is sitting at your kitchen table across from you, maybe with your spouse, who knows the kids, who knows the name of the dog, and will spend every few weeks 2 to 3 hours at a time to walk through wherever you need help at that moment. Could be an insurance issue, could be medication, could be a situation with the clinic, could be any question that you have. What happened here? Let's see. Oh, here we go. So a couple of years ago, we sat down as a group, our staff and board, and we looked at what our values were. And we wanted to put those down because we wanted that to guide our every action and make sure that when we were making a decision that it was consistent with the values that we had set forth. And the first one we focused on was courage. ALS is a rough disease. I don't need to tell people that. And so our thought behind it was that we are very open about the difficulties of the disease. We don't shy away from it. We also try to do everything that we enact. We try to do it with a bit of kindness. Again, this is a rough disease. We need to show a great deal of empathy for each other. Oh, I didn't realize the yellow didn't show up very well. Tenacity. So I think this goes along with the fact that we've done this work for 42 years. We are committed to this. We are consistent, we are committed, we're here for the long run. And we're going to talk about this in a moment, but collaboration was one of our, and is one of our values, because the best care, the best work we can do is by working together. This goes to what I spoke earlier. Individuality is very important. So we don't treat or work with every individual with ALS the same way. They're all different. They all have different voices. They have different needs, and we try to honor that. And lastly, we certainly thoughtfully approach all of this with a level of expertise. And that includes pulling together all of the ALS disciplines under one umbrella. So we operate an ALS center at Northwestern University, the Les Turner ALS Center, which houses right now 5 different research laboratories. fully multidisciplinary clinic, and then in addition to that, our foundation offers comprehensive wraparound services, and that's all part of the expertise that we bring to individuals with ALS MND. These are a few of our collaboration partners over the last year. Some of you are in this room, which is wonderful. We really try to find ways that we can work with other ALS organizations. And this may surprise people from around the world, but at my last count, there were roughly 60 ALS organizations in the US. I could be wrong. That was probably, several months ago, and there could be more. And these are all public charities. These aren't, GoFundMe pages, or, these are actual public charities, all of which are working on a somewhat similar, but somewhat perhaps different aspect of the disease. So I want to talk about 4 examples from that list. Earlier this year in September, we hosted, along with Hope Loves Company, an overnight weekend for children who've been affected by ALS. Now, Hope Loves Company, you may know Jody O'Donnell Ames, who founded this several years ago. She's been at these meetings in the past. Their goal is really to provide these children who've been affected with the disease a community of their own that they may not find otherwise. So we partnered with Hope Loves Company to bring that to Chicago. From an economic perspective, the way we worked it out was we agreed to fund the cost 50-50. We also brought our staff in and our volunteers in, as well as the families we work with to attend the program. And it was, you can see from the photos, it was absolutely wonderful to see. And it also fit with our mission. So we were not looking to do something outside of the work we do. We were looking to augment our current mission. Earlier this year, not earlier this year, I guess it was about 2 years ago now, a young man with ALS named Brian Wallach, I think many of you may know Brian, has spoken with probably several of you in this room as well, and he wanted to establish a new ALS organization. And he came to me and said, we want this to be patient-centric, we want to empower patients, and we need some help getting off the ground. So in the US, it takes some time to become a registered charity, and that may be true in other countries as well. So he'd asked us to be their fiscal sponsor, meaning that we took in the charitable donations into IMALS. We did this for about a year. We restricted the funds to IMALS until they received their charitable designation, at which point we dissolved the agreement and they were a fully fledged organization on their own. We're now continuing to work with IMALS, as many of you here in this room are, on selected advocacy issues. We may work with them on some ideas of how we fund research going forward, but it's been a very interesting approach to see. Another way in which we support research was by joining a group called Answer ALS, and some of you also may be familiar with this. Answer ALS started, I want to say, in 2016, and the goal at the time was to become the largest coordinated research study in ALS. They were collecting samples from 1,000 patients, they were collecting longitudinal data, genomic data, biofluids, biosamples, with the goal being that all of this research would be freely available to anyone. So it all needed to be funded up front. And when the project began, they had 6 clinics around the country. I reached out to a member of the Scientific Advisory Council there and said, we operate a very large clinic, how can we help you reach your enrollment goals? So we self-funded that to become a partner with Answer ALS, and we were very pleased to see that the enrollment goals were reached, and that study finished enrollment at the end of 2018. And I will say that was the first time we had funded research outside of Northwestern, probably in several years. But we felt this was a very important open science study to be funding. The other way in which we support research is through the National ALS Registry. The ATSDR it's a bunch of letters, but it's an acronym within the federal government. This is a program that's been funded by the federal government since 2010, and the goal behind it is to not only collect the number of people living with ALS, but it's also to understand the demographics of what those individuals have experienced in their life, whether that be military history, sports, reproductive history, occupation, where they've lived, etc., so that information can then be gleaned from that to try to develop patterns. A big piece of what the National ALS Registry does as well is it funds research into environmental causes of ALS. And they have funded, I believe, 16 research studies so far. So we are a partner with the National ALS Registry. We help promote enrollment among our patient population, and we help promote the goals of the registry as well. So, lessons learned from collaborations. These are all different, and some of them, quite frankly, are a bit messy. You know, it's like any relationship you have. They don't always necessarily go according to plan. So we use this as our guiding principle. We look to see that every collaboration we enter into is going to advance the field and help individuals with ALS M&D. If it doesn't meet that threshold, we're not interested. I will say this, collaborations are very hard work. They require mutual respect. And that's because you're dealing with two or more organizations that each have their own goals, their own staff, their own board, their own culture. And so sometimes we don't always see eye to eye, and that's okay. So that goes into my point. You're going to need to talk about this far more than you anticipate. Even if you have an agreement before you start off, and we do, we have signed agreements in all these situations, but they're theoretical until you actually start doing the work and then realize, oh, you know, we didn't address this, or how are we going to approach this? We've also decided that it's okay to collaborate with a group once and move on. That's okay. Maybe you've achieved what you need to achieve. Maybe it's not something that you need to do going forward, and that's fine. However, I will say that due to limited resources in the space, and we all know that, those of us who are all, you know, raising every dollar that we need in order to do our work, that given limited resources, long-term collaborations can be very beneficial to the entire community. And of course, these are our most important partners, and that's part of our guiding principle. So we keep that in mind all the time. All right, that's what I've got. Thank you. Can I take any questions? Efrat.
I'm amazed by the number. You said 60 organizations in the US. And
I could be wrong. That could be low.
No, that if it's 58 or 62, it doesn't matter. But it's a big number, and I'm wondering, do you think it benefits the patients or confuses them? Like a Chicago newly diagnosed patient, does he know who to approach and where the best, or maybe it puts more confusion on the already existing confusion because of the disease?
So there aren't 60 in Chicago,
No, of
right?
course, but
I think it does both. I think there can be benefits from new groups coming in, but I also believe that it causes confusion. There's no question. So it's a tough balance. And the other thing is we have no control over that, right? So any organization can start up at any time. They get their charitable designation, and they're going to do what they're going to do. So we have to find a way to coexist. Okay, thank you.